Hello, good morning, and welcome to Unacademy IAS, a one stop destination for all the English medium civil services aspirants. This is Shyam Kaggod here, taking up the Hindu news analysis for the date 10th September 2025. Before I start the discussion, please do let me know that I'm audible and visible for all of you. Done. Thanks a lot. Let's start the discussion. So, in today's session, I'll be covering totally 11 articles ranging from the science and technology to economy to international relations as well as polity. This has been done in order to ensure that the coverage of the topics will be comprehensive and whatever is the demand of the UPSC, you'll be able to meet and ace the examination. If you are liking this initiative, do not forget to hit the like button. If you are yet to join our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. Before I start the discussion, two very important announcements. The first one, I've been told that the offer, that is the courses being made available at a price, the lowest price of 17,999, will be ending tomorrow. Those who are aiming to appear for the examination in 26 and 27, you need to have a proper coverage of the static portion, current affairs. For example, we have a program called as Unacademy's Current Affairs Navigator for all of our students. You will have to have a correct reading material, prelims as well as a mains test series. Once you enroll into our courses, you will get access to all the above. Those who are interested, do check out the details by clicking on the link provided in the description below. And the second one, as usual, once the session is over, the PPT that I'm using will be uploaded in this particular Google Drive. To get access to the Google Drive, all you need to do is basically click on the link in the description of the video. You will be taken to this particular sheet. On the sheet, 8th September, 10th September, there'll be an entry along with the link. Click on the link, you will be taken to the Google Drive, download the PPT, but more importantly, use it for revision. Now, with that, let me start the discussion. I've listed three articles here. Don't worry, I'm not going to write anything in the slide. So these are the three articles which are discussing the context of what is happening in Nepal. Let's understand step by step what is happening in Nepal and what is the connection to India. Again and again in every session, I keep on telling you this particular point. You want to make the subject easy. You want to cover the topics in a comprehensive way. You want to use these notes for revision purposes. Later on, please prepare mind maps. For example, in the context of Nepal issue, in the context of what has happened in the Nepal in the last 1+ week, I've created a mind map here. Let's discuss these particular points. Now, regarding that, should you read the whole history of Nepal? Not required. Just understand what is the background and what is the current situation, and all of this, how does it tie into India and Nepal relation? What is the implication between India and Nepal? So, if you can understand the issue under these particular three headings, as far as I'm concerned, you have covered all the bases that are required for UPSC preliminary examination. Let me go point by point. What is the background to what is happening in Nepal? Listen to me now. Nepal earlier was a monarch. There was a king, there was the family of the king, and there was, right, let's say, hereditary concept, etc. But later on, from 2008, I repeat, from 2008, from monarch, it became constitutional monarchy. And from 2008, it shifted to the concept of democracy. That is essentially elections have been periodically conducted and the governments have been elected by the people. And whenever there's a movement from this concept of monarchy to democracy, what you expect is the improvement in the lives of the people. Because the argument of democracy is what? We are electing the government, we are electing our representatives. The representatives will take a policy, or let's say, will decide on the policy, will implement the policies which are not going to benefit some section of the society, but every section of the society, especially the poor people. But what has been the experience in the context of Nepal? Why this concept of Gen Z revolution or Gen Z protest happened? Understand this very carefully. So, with the movement or with the shift from the monarchy to democracy, what we expected was stability in the government. stability in the policy making, improvement in the lives of the people, etc. But in the context of Nepal, in the last 17 years, there have been 15 governments. Is the point clear? In the last 17 years, there have been 15 governments. That is, if you see, many of these particular governments have not been able to complete the term of 5 years. And when you are not able to complete the term of 5 years, because of whatever the reason is, but if you're not able to complete the term of 5 years, automatically there is no stability in terms of policy making. Is this point clear to everyone? There is no stability, no guarantee regarding policy making. And when there is no guarantee regarding policy making, the effectiveness or the implementation of the policies will also be affected. Now, how do I prove this? Please look at the situation of Nepal. The per capita income in Nepal is almost half of what is the per capita income of India. But in case of the population of Nepal, which is around 3 crore plus, on month to month basis, this is very important. On month to month basis, more than 60,000 people migrate out of Nepal. They go to other countries in search of livelihoods. And on day-to-day basis, it is said on an average more than 2,000 people move out of Nepal in search of better livelihood. That is the point number one. And why do you think the population will migrate from one region to another region? Not within the country, but from one country to another country. It is because the economic conditions in that particular country is not conducive. This population is not able to find right, let's say, jobs. They're not able to find good employment opportunities. The cost of living is increasing. Expenditures are increasing. But right opportunities are not available. So on day-to-day basis, more than 2,000 people have kept on moving away or kept on moving out of Nepal into other countries in search of livelihood. Point number one. Point number two, this population which goes out of Nepal earns a certain amount of income, salary, etc., and sends remittances back to the people, that is relatives, spouse, children, family members, etc., back to Nepal. And if you're wondering, and I hope you understand the connection, I'll establish a connection as to why there was a revolt suddenly like this. Why the let's say the government's decision to ban the social media, why it actually led to a revolt. Let's establish a connection. So argument is a lot of population migrates out, they are earning money, they're sending the remittances back. And just to understand the importance of remittances, look at this factual data. The remittances which are sent back to Nepal by the population which is going out is around 33% of GDP. Is everybody able to understand the factual information? 33% of GDP. And if you're wondering, sir, is this number significant? Can anybody guess in the chat section how much remittances does India receive? What is the percentage of it out of India's GDP? Let me know. India receives the largest remittances. Inward remittance is the largest in case of India. Agreed. But what percentage of India's GDP is the inward remittances that we receive? I will tell you the answer because nobody is answering, by the way. India receives the remittances which account for 3.5%. 3.5% of GDP. Have a look at this. 3.5%. Nepal, it is 33%. India, 3.5%. So one of the countries which accounts for largest inward remittances as a percentage of GDP is Nepal. One of the largest countries, by the way. So now the population has migrated outside and they are sending remittances, and there is right lot of chatter happening, lot of contacts being established through Facebook, through, again, when I say Facebook, Meta, etc., or for that matter WhatsApp, etc. Now the government in Nepal announces a ban on all the social platforms. Around 26 social platforms were banned by the government of Nepal. And before you go forward, what was the logic behind banning the social media platforms? There was a valid reason as well. The reason was the court there issued a directive, and asked the government to ensure that these social media platforms will have one person appointed in Nepal. What is the reason? Let's say there is a grievance, there is a complaint, etc. So, in order to address these issues, there should be a grievance redressal officer appointed in the country. Now, the government issued an order. The companies did not follow the order. Then the government simply said that you will have to register with the government of Nepal. If not, we will impose a ban. And the companies did not follow that order as well. And finally, the government of Nepal decided, because the companies are not following the order, let me impose a ban. And the government followed the order, announced a ban on 20 plus social media platforms. Now there was a sudden cut in, let's say, connection between the people who have migrated outside Nepal with the, let's say, family members. This was the immediate, right, let's say, cause. This was the immediate cause. But even before that, there was also a concern associated with unemployment in Nepal. Why do you think most of the people who are protesting were basically belonging to Gen Z population? And that's the reason this revolt has been, or this, right, let's say the opposition or the protest has been called as Gen Z protest. Most of the population which was protesting was right belonging to the youth population. And the reason behind this is one, unemployment rate in Nepal is very, very high. How much? The overall unemployment rate is around 12%. Overall unemployment rate around 12%. But when you look at the youth population, that is in the range of 30 years, youth population, the unemployment rate is more than 20%. This is a massive unemployment rate which is affecting the population, youth population which is present in Nepal. In addition to this, there is also criticism of high amount of corruption amongst government officials in Nepal. In addition to this, there was one more simmering, right, let's say reason. That was the issue of Nepo kids. Issue of Nepo kids in the country Nepal, on one side, the population, a large chunk of population is finding it difficult to earn livelihood. At the same point of time, the kids of the government officials, the ministers, etc., they have, right, let's say, located outside Nepal. They keep on posting, right, let's say, the photos, videos, etc., in all of these social media platforms. And that was one of the reasons why large chunk of youth felt betrayed by the government. They argued that we were happy when we moved from the monarchy to democracy. In fact, in the last 1 year, there have been multiple rounds of protest or multiple rounds in support of return of the monarchy in Nepal. So argument is we voted, we hoped that democracy will improve our lives, will provide benefit to us, but all of this is not happening. And that, in addition to the announcement of banning of social media platforms, actually led to large scale protest. In addition to the large scale protest, what fueled the protest was the statements given by the governments there, or let's say the prime minister, who basically stated, even if certain number of people will lose jobs, we are not worried, we will impose a ban on social media platform. And finally, this went out of control. Multiple people, more than 19 people were killed because of the gunfire. More than 100 protesters, right, were affected, were, right, let's say, admitted into hospitals, etc. So this snowballed, and as a result of this, there is a collapse of the government in the country Nepal now. Now, what is the situation right now in Nepal? Next 24 to 48 hours are very critical. But having said so, the situation is the army has taken over control of law and order. Army is basically going to play a very important role in bringing together the lawmakers, that is the president of Nepal, who has called for the peace negotiations, etc. So army will play a very important role in the country Nepal now, right? So this is the situation. Now, how does all of this come into question between India and Nepal? Why should you read all of this? Why should you understand all of this? Simple reason. India is one of the neighboring countries with Nepal. Correct? Everybody is okay? Anybody in the classroom who says, sir, no, I don't think so. India is a neighboring country of Nepal. No, India is a neighboring country which shares huge border with the country Nepal as well. So one is, what is the outcome in terms of foreign relations? Now listen to me very carefully. The prime minister who resigned yesterday, right, in the context of India and Nepal, had more, right, let's say affinity towards China. Affinity in the sense he was more open to having relations with China. And compared to earlier governments, or when you talk about monarchy in Nepal, etc., Indian government had, right, let's say, more confidence in those kinds of, let's say, governments compared to the earlier prime minister. In fact, very recently, the prime minister visited China as well. That is, the prime minister of Nepal visited China during the SCO meeting. And one surprising thing that has been the outcome of this particular, let's say, event in Nepal has been that China so far, the government of China so far has not given any kind of official reaction to the ousting of the prime minister. That's surprising, by the way. But, anyways, in the context of India, of course, yes, it's a mixed bag for us. Mixed bag in the sense we were worried what kind of, let's say, the overtures, or let's say the relationship between Nepal's as well as China would, right, evolve over a period of time, because the prime minister was more, right, or was having more affinity towards China. That is one concern that we had. In addition to this, with the ousting of the prime minister, with more of instability in Nepal, there is one more concern for us. That is the concern associated with security. The concern associated with security. Why? Whenever these kind of volatilities will happen, and if there is a country which has a land border, a lot of population might migrate into India. There can be movement of population into India. That raises a security concern for us. So that is the reason there is also article which says security along India-Nepal border has been strengthened now. Security along India-Nepal border has been strengthened. And please remember this, security along India-Nepal border, for that matter, is basically manned by Sashastra Seema Bal. Yes, SP. Sashastra Seema Bal can be a preliminary question. Be very, very careful. So, in terms of, let's say, migration of the population, refugee, right, that is a concern for us. In terms of having imports and exports, trade relations with Nepal, if there is a destabilization, it's a concern, right? And what kind of a new government will be established there? What will be the relationship between India, China, and right? I'm sorry, India and Nepal, Nepal and China. That is also one concerning factor associated with this particular debate. So everybody is okay with the discussion related to this particular topic? Please do let me know in the chat section. But more importantly, please solve the MCQ number 159 as soon as possible. Solve this question now. Consider the following statements. The border between India and Nepal is guarded by Sashastra Seema Bal. A lot of will say very easy question, because first statement I've already told you the answer. But please look at the second and third statement as well. SSB functions under Ministry of Defense. SSB has its headquarters in New Delhi. Right. So what is the right answer for this particular question? How many of the statements are correct? Please do let me know. Some of you are saying C, some of you are saying B. What about others? Others will be like, sir, you tell the answer, I'll simply listen. And I'll directly replicate that in the UPSC preliminary examination. So let's solve. The border between India and Nepal is guarded by Sashastra Seema Bal. Yes, the statement is true. SSB functions under Ministry of Defense. A lot of you will feel this is correct. No, this is incorrect. It doesn't function under the Ministry of Defense. It functions under Ministry of Home. Right, so second one is incorrect. Third one is the SSB has its headquarters in New Delhi. Yes, the statement is true. So first and the third are correct. Right option for the question will be option B. Only two of the statements are true. Now let me throw a googly at you people. Please solve another question associated with what is happening between, what is happening in Nepal. Please look at the question and solve this question. Which of the following states share border with Nepal? And please don't open the Google. Don't open Google, search and then answer. Then the whole purpose is defeated. Uttarakhand, West Bengal, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar and Sikkim. right? How many of these, right? Or let's say which of the option is correct? 1, 2, and 3, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 1, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So option D, option C, option B. Nobody wants to take option A, by the way. Please take somebody take option A. Then we can basically say Anekata mein ekata, Bharat ki visheshata. Okay, so right option for this particular question will be option D. All the 5 states that I've listed here share the border with Nepal. All these 5 share the border with Nepal. Okay, so Uttarakhand, West Bengal, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, as well as Sikkim. All the states. Okay, so be very careful. These kind of questions can be asked by the UPSC in the preliminary examination. So next article, rare earth and China. China digs in on rare earth commands global market. Lot of data, lot of graphs have been provided. What are the important points you need to remember? And by the way, please do not write it down. Download the PPT, use it for revision purpose. Now let's start. What is a rare earth? In the context of India, very often you will come across the concept called as critical minerals. Correct? You will come across the term called as critical minerals. India has listed 30 minerals as critical minerals. Why do we call these as critical minerals? Basically, the shortage of this will create certain problem. Simple way. The shortage of supply of these particular minerals will have an impact on the economic activity. That's the reason it is called as a critical mineral. Out of these critical minerals, 30 plus critical minerals, we also have 17 minerals which are referred to as rare earth elements. Rare earth elements. Why these are called as a rare earth? Please listen to me very carefully. These are not referred to as a rare earth because these are rarely available. No, not because these are not available in the earth crust. No, these are referred to as a rare earth for a simple reason. These are not available in group. That is basically if you mine out, you will get a rare earth, but it will be available in very, very small concentration. Very, very small amount. Right? Generally, other elements are available in large quantity, but these elements, when you mine them, right, you will get very, very small quantity of these. That is the precise reason why these called as rare earth. Now, how many rare earths are there? Question can be asked on this as well. According to the International Energy Agency, IEA, according to the IEA, there are 17 metals which are classified as rare earths. Is it okay? 17. And within this particular 17, again, there is one classification which is basically referred to as light rare earths and heavy rare earths. Light as well as heavy rare earth. The only difference is light, comparatively I'm talking now, light is available in more quantity compared to heavy. Easily available compared to heavy. So light and heavy. This is the list of all the 17 metals which are classified as a rare earth. Please go through the list. Go through the list. Don't waste your time later compiling the list, etc. The list is there here itself. Please go through the list. Why? If the question has to be made difficult, if the evaluator wants to create a question which is more difficult for you in terms of factual information, they might ask you which of these of the following are light rare earths, which of the following are heavy rare earths. Question can be asked. Please make a note of this. Now, what is the information given in the article? This is the list of the rare earths. In the context of the rare earth, China plays a very, very important role. China plays a very, very dominant role. And that is exactly the mind map that I've created here. And that is given in the article. Rare earths, which are part of the critical minerals, are required in day-to-day activities of manufacturing that you do. For example, you want to manufacture electric vehicles, you require this. You want to manufacture cars, you require this. You want to manufacture something associated with the space exploration, you will require it. So on day-to-day basis, a lot of these manufacturing activities require the access to rare earths. But in the context of rare earths, which country has a dominance in the global market? Which country has a dominance in the global market? Again, it should not be surprising to you. It is the country China. China has a dominance over the production, over the technology used for processing, over, right, let's say manufacturing of the tools used for the processing, as well as the processing, right, activity itself. Please have a look at the factual data here. Memorize this. Chinese dominance is represented in the form of China holding half of the global reserves of these rare minerals. It also has the world's largest producer. How much? 60% of the global production of rare earths is accounted by China in the last 5 years. Next, it accounts for 92% of the global refining capacity. Refining capacity also is very high in China when you look at the global market. And not just this, more than 30% of the exports in the global market have been satisfied by the exports from China in the last 5 years. So, in terms of production, in terms of refining, in terms of export, China plays a very, very dominant role in the critical, right? Let's say, in the concept of rare earth sector. Now, when China will impose a ban, and it has done this by the way, when China will impose a ban or restriction or export of anything associated with the rare earths, it will be felt by the global market. It will be felt across multiple countries, the effect will be felt. For example, back in 2023, Chinese government imposed a ban on export of tools. Look at this. Export of tools. There was a ban imposed. There was a ban imposed on, let's say, sharing of the process that will be used for processing or refining these critical elements. So when government which holds the dominance in the global market imposes a restriction, imposes a ban, automatically the supply of these equipments, the tools, the knowledge in the global market will be disrupted, and that will disrupt the whole economic activity as such. And last month, Chinese government has imposed one more set of regulations. Right? It has imposed one more set of regulations. According to the latest regulation, if one company in China wants to export these rare earths, now it has to seek the permission of the Chinese authorities. It has to seek the Chinese authorities' permission first. Only then export these rare earth elements. So whenever these kind of regulations are imposed by the country which holds a dominance, it will lead to a lot of disruption. So what is the solution then? Article basically discusses only on China's dominance, but you don't stop there. Go beyond that. Because ultimately you will tie this article to what is the impact on India. What has the government of India done, etc. You will have to focus on that aspect as well. So what is the impact on India? India is heavily import dependent. India is heavily import dependent. Overall, in the critical minerals, we are import dependent, and specifically within that, even in the rare earths, we are heavily import dependent. So, some of the reforms that the government of India has undertaken in the last couple of years, including the most recent one in the last week, are one, the government of India this year has amended MMDR Act, Mines and Minerals Development Regulation Act. MMDR Act has been amended by the government, and by amending this, what is the solution? It is going to allow the private sector entry and participation in critical mineral mining. That is the first one. Second one, the government, right, some time ago signed, became a party to multilateral grouping or the group of multiple countries. That is basically by the name of Mineral Security Partnership. Last year, this was there in the newspaper where USA is also one of the countries. So India is a signatory to MSP that will give us access to certain supply of critical minerals. Third one is NCMM, National Critical Mineral Mission. This was announced very recently by the government, under which government of India will be investing around 16,000 plus crore rupees. Private sector is expected to invest around 18,000 crore rupees. Total amount of investment under this is expected to be more than 34,000. More than 1,000 critical mineral projects are supposed to be undertaken under this mineral mission. Most recently, the government of India has announced a scheme to promote recycling of critical minerals in India. Scheme to promote recycling of critical minerals. Right? This was announced last week itself. This is also equally important. So these are some of the reforms which have been undertaken by the government in the context of promoting production, processing, recycling, and access in the global market for the critical minerals as well as rare earth metals. So everybody is okay with the discussion? Now take up this particular question for you to practice mains answer writing. India's green transition and national security depends upon rare earth elements. Elaborate and also discuss the reforms undertaken by the government. Right? Please mention in the introduction what is the reason why critical minerals or rare earths are so important for us. Give examples, defense sector, green energy, right, or mobility, etc. And then come to the main body, what reforms are being undertaken by the government in order to promote the production, the processing, supply, access of these particular critical minerals. Okay. Now, can I move on to the next question, next article? There was somebody who was asking me what is the difference between production and processing. My dear, I'll give you one example. Crude oil is produced, but crude oil directly will not pump into your vehicle, that is car, etc. You need diesel, you need petrol, etc. So you need to refine it. So first you will produce, first you will mine it, that is production, and then you will refine it. These are two different processes. Next article, just an addition to what we have discussed some time ago. India revs up backup as China rare earth curbs impact e-waste. What is the importance of this article? Given in a very, very small coverage. In the corner in the newspaper, bottom business page, the article has been given. But very important. Why? Very recently, with China imposing restriction on the export of rare earth magnets. All of you heard of this? The magnets which are important in EV production. Chinese government basically imposed a restriction on this. India wanted to import them. Japan wanted to import them. USA wanted to import. Germany wanted to import. And with this kind of imposition on the magnets, the manufacturing activity, electric vehicle manufacturing activity across the globe, including India, by the way, was disrupted. Now, what is the solution to this? Can we develop engines? Listen to me carefully here. Can we develop new types of engines which do not require these critical minerals? Think of this. One solution is, can we develop the engines which do not require critical minerals in the first place? Right? What if the critical minerals that are available to us, easily accessible to us, or very less critical minerals are used in producing the engine? So automatically our reliance on the imports from China would be lesser. We do not have to become the pawns in the game played by China to assert its political dominance, to basically push us, not just India, other countries as well, to dictate the terms in the global diplomacy. So the solution that has been found is, there is one experiment that is being conducted. Right? The company which is conducting this particular experiment is Sterling G-Tech E-Mobility. Company's name is not important, just understand the impact. Sterling Mobility Company is conducting an experiment. That is, they are developing an engine which doesn't require these kind of magnets. Right? The magnets that we import from China, right? This particular engine doesn't require that. And around 7 car makers are basically, right, looking at this particular experiment. They have decided to come on board. And once this becomes successful, these engines would be produced in India, which may not require the imports from China, which is right, critical for us. So this is one article. Take it as a current affairs value addition. Will become very helpful for you to write an answer. Next article, the long march ahead to technological independence. Long march ahead to technological independence. What is the importance of this article? Listen to me carefully. The writer simply says, no doubt we have attained political independence. Very recently, we even celebrated 79th Independence Day. We celebrated 79th Independence Day very recently. Hardly been, right, less than a month ago, we celebrated that. But in addition to this, no doubt we have attained political independence. We need to attain technological independence. We need to attain technological independence. What do you mean by this? Let me give you one example so that you understand this very clearly. Very recently, in India, there is a company by the name of Nayara. All of you heard of the company's name? Right? Basically, oil company. This company Nayara, earlier, it was right basically referred to, or the name of the company was SR. It was owned by a group of, right, or let's say a family in India, SR Oils. Basically, they were not able to continue operations, a lot of financial issues, and they ended up selling this particular company back in 2017, wherein the Russian oil company, Russian state-owned company, it made a huge amount of investment. 49%, just over 49% of ownership in this SR company was purchased by Russian state oil company. And later on, the company's name also was changed from SR to Nayara. Okay, this is right one important point. Now, in recent times, what has happened? Russian companies have been sanctioned by Western countries. That is, basically, the G7 group of countries have imposed multiple sanctions on these Russian companies. Some time ago, the European Union announced a set of sanctions on this Russian company. And as a result of this, the company Microsoft, which provided lot of services to Naira company, put a block on the access to all of these particular services. Meaning what? Let's say you and me are employees in this particular company. I want to send a mail to you using cloud services. Now I have been blocked out of this particular service. Right, these particular cloud computing services, which are basically part of the services commercially provided by Microsoft company to the Indian company here, or to this particular Naira company, the blocks were imposed. They were not allowed access to these particular services, as a result of which the operations of the company Naira were disrupted. Naira went to Delhi High Court, filed a petition, filed a case against the Microsoft, asked for the immediate withdrawal of these particular restriction, and Microsoft eventually basically stated that there was some systemic issue. Automatically, the blocks have been implemented and these restrictions have been withdrawn. But this raises a very important issue. This kind of activity by an American company raises a very important issue. What is the issue? Let's say today Microsoft said, because there was a technical issue, the block was imposed, right, nothing that was the decision of the company, just by default the block was imposed. Agreed, they have basically withdrawn these restrictions. Now Naira is able to get access to all the operations. But what if tomorrow the government of USA will send a directive to company Google, will send a directive to company, right, let's say Apple, send a directive to Microsoft, and basically order them to stop providing services to Indian companies? Can you imagine the kind of destability that would create amongst Indian companies? So, what is the argument here? The argument is very simple. There are multiple examples in recent times, which should be, right, basically a cause of concern for India. Reason being, these very few of the companies which are American owned, which are American companies, basically can be used by the governments to impose a ban, impose restrictions on the activities of the Indian companies. So the solution to this is basically technological independence. Everybody is able to understand the connection here. It is basically technological independence. And all them taking one example of, let's say, USA government here, or let's say Microsoft company. Don't you think what China is trying to do is the same thing? What Germany could do in the future is the same thing. Japan, South Korea for that matter. So there are multiple concerns associated with that. So what is the solution? We need to develop, right, let's say, the important operating systems in India. Solution is very simple. We need to develop important operating systems in India. Atmanirbharata, self-reliance. Develop these operating systems in India. And for that, there is a need for the government to set up a committee, provide a scheme, announce a scheme which will promote development of these operating systems. This is one recommendation. Development is not sufficient. Second, there is also need to have a dedicated team for maintaining and upgradation of all of this. Is the second recommendation okay with all of you? You need to have a particular data. We need to have a particular team for this. It's not that simply we will develop an operating system and adoption will be done. No, you need to have a team to ensure that there is a maintenance provided, there is a updation provided. And in addition to this, we also need to ensure that there will be adoption of these particular operating systems. There will be adoptions. And the author simply says, in the current situation, it's not difficult to promote, by the way. Correct? In the current situation, it is not difficult. Why? The kind of measures that are being discussed by the American government, the statements that are being given by the American government, it can be easily promoted in the domestic market. But for that, we need to ensure that first and foremost, all these systems are developed indigenously. So adoption should be promoted. And there is also need to ensure there is an efficient revenue model. There is a very good revenue model, because once we develop this kind of, let's say, system, let's say a company which will provide operating service, adoption will be there, right? Government will promote it, but government cannot keep on subsidizing all of this till perpetuity. The government cannot keep on subsidizing this till perpetuity. There has to be an efficient revenue model for this. And lastly, there is also a recommendation to ensure that there is right, a back-end support by promoting manufacturing. So what kind of manufacturing? For example, if you want to develop these kind of softwares, right, let's say technologies, etc., you require semiconductors, right? So you need to develop, promote the investment which is being done by the government of India, by the way, in these kind of, let's say, manufacturing activities. So by following these kind of recommendations, the writer simply says, we can ensure there is a technological independence along with political independence. Done? Right. So these are certain very important points which have been given. Apart from that, very general points, don't worry about it. Let me go to the next article, polity article. Mr. C.P. Radhakrishnan has been elected as the Vice President of India. 17th Vice President of India. Now, this is one factual information. That is, he is the 17th Vice President. Second point, right, in addition to all the other points that you have already read regarding Vice President, in the context of Vice Presidential elections, please understand, it is the members of Rajya Sabha plus Lok Sabha. I repeat, Rajya Sabha plus Lok Sabha, which is basically voting. You do not see the state representatives voting during elections. No, in VP elections, it is not done. So the data point which has been provided here makes for an interesting reading. Interesting reading. Why? There are certain vacancies in both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Point number one. There are vacancies in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. As a result of this, right, essentially from 788 electors, rather than having 788, we had 781 electors. And within 781 electors, some of the votes which have been cast, these have been declared invalid. These votes have been declared as invalid. For example, let's say, right, you do not give the right preference because the elections are done through a single transferable vote. You will have to give the preference according to you. Which candidate should be first? Which is your first preference? Who is your second preference? Who is your third preference? So if you have not given the right preference, invalid. If you basically, right, show the vote, you are not keeping the vote secret, invalid. So around 15 votes have been declared as invalid. In addition to this, I repeat, in addition to this, it is not compulsory for all the MPs to vote in the elections. It is not compulsory. If you want to abstain from voting, you are allowed to abstain. And that exactly what has happened here. 14 MPs have abstained from voting to the VP or in the VP elections. And one more very important point, you please remember this. There is no whip. There is no concept of a whip in the vice presidential election. What is the idea of a whip here? An order has been issued by your political party. You cannot violate the order. You will have to vote according to the order itself. And that is a precise reason what you can see in the this election of for the vice president is there has been a cross voting as well. I repeat, there has been a cross voting as well. Cross voting means political parties, the political party will basically say this is our representative, but the members of the political party have voted for another member or another contestant in the VP election. So cross voting also has been seen. Right, so these are certain very important points. Right, make observation. These are the kind of questions which can be asked in the preliminary examination. Done. Right, so winning candidate, the Mr. CP Radhakrishnan has obtained 452 votes, and the other candidate has got 300 votes. Right, so much more than what was actually expected. Now, associated with this, please solve the MCQ very quickly. This MCQ should not be difficult to you. Please solve the MCQ very quickly. Consider the following statements. The party members while voting in VP elections are bound by the party whip. In the VP elections, all the members of the parliament must vote. Right. So second statement is incorrect. First statement is also incorrect. Some of you are saying A. My dear, whip is not there. Whip is not there, right? In the context of VP elections, whip is not there, right? So both the statements are incorrect. Right option for this particular question will be option D, none of the above. Okay, next important article from the context of S&T. Center has granted license to 5 companies to manufacture first indigenous, underline that particular term, first indigenous malaria vaccine. Right, what is the indigenously developed malaria vaccine? Who has developed that? What is the importance of this particular vaccine? Right, please have a look at the factual data here. In case of India, the government of India has announced that by 2030, we want to eliminate malaria. By 2030, we want to eliminate malaria. Okay, point number 1. Point number 2, what is the burden in India? Right, what is the case load in India when you compare that, right, basically to the global market? India accounts for around 1.4% of the global cases. I'll repeat the statement. India accounts for around 1.4% of global malaria burden. Okay, that is essentially 1.4% of the cases do take place in India. Second very important point within this is the deaths that are caused because of malaria. Out of the total deaths which are caused because of malaria, India accounts for 0.9% of the death cases. 0.9% of death cases. That's also very, very high burden, by the way. And again, don't look at only 0.9%. In the global market you're talking. In the whole globe, India alone accounts for around 1% of total malarial death cases. That's a very, very high burden, by the way. So what is the solution? The government of India, the entity owned by government of India, ICMR, Indian Council for Medical Research. ICMR, along with certain partner entities, has developed a vaccine. I repeat, has developed a vaccine. Right? The name of the vaccine is this one. Please have a look at this. Adfalcivax. Adfalcivax. This is the name of the vaccination that has been developed by ICMR. But now ICMR is not a private sector entity. It's not a private sector entity. So essentially what government generally does is whenever it wants to have a commercial production of these, it will provide the license to, right, let's say private sector companies. Initially, they will call for expression of interest. Any private sector company which wants to, right, participate, etc., they will be given the license. So 5 companies have been given the license to manufacture this particular vaccination now. The name of these particular 5 companies are listed here. Please go through that as well. UPSC can ask you this in the preliminary examination. Done? Right? So, based on this, please solve the MCQ number 162 now. Solve the MCQ quickly because it is an easier MCQ having seen the data some time ago. Consider the following statements. India has set a target of 2047 to eliminate malaria. Right? Now also some of you will make a mistake. Adfalcivax is the first indigenously developed Indian vaccine for malaria. Second one is correct. First one is incorrect. Right option for the question will be option B. Only two. Right? Only the second statement is correct. Only the second statement is correct. Some of you will make a mistake here. Right? So basically, you will misread the statement. That is not how many of the question, how many of the statement, which of the above statement is correct. Only the second statement is correct. Okay, next article from the IR. GERD, GERD, Africa's biggest electric generation dam, hydroelectric dam. Very important. Please remember this. Africa as such is given very high importance in the UPSC examination. So what is this GERD? GERD stands for Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Earlier, this was called as a Millennium Dam. Earlier, this was referred to as Millennium Dam. Now, this has been referred to as GERD. This is basically the largest hydroelectric project in this particular continent. Right? This is developed in Ethiopia. And please understand, look at the map as well. Please look at the map as well. Why? They can ask you questions on Blue Nile. Through how many countries the Blue Nile will flow can be the question. Right? Which is upper riparian state, lower riparian, upper riparian country, lower riparian country can also be asked. So please look at the map and go through the countries through which the Blue Nile will pass. And why Egypt is opposed to this particular project. Why is Egypt opposed to this particular project? Okay. Now, what are the important points? One, this is by far the largest hydroelectric project in Africa. First one. Second one, earlier this was referred to as a Millennium Dam. Now it will be referred to as Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Third one, this dam has been developed with investment with the expenditure of around $4 billion. The total investment in this particular dam is $4 billion. And remember this $4 billion is the investment done by the government here. No, let's say foreign aid has been taken. No loans have been taken by the government. That's also equally important. Fourth very important point, this hydroelectric project is basically estimated to generate electricity to the tune of 5,150 megawatts. And why this is important? So important in this context, this electric production capacity that has been given to this project is more than the twice that is actually generated in the country today. I'll repeat the statement. In this particular country, Ethiopia, large chunk of population suffers because there is no access to electricity. They do not have sufficient electricity production. So by installing or let's say by developing this kind of a project, they have targeted over 5,000 megawatts, which is twice the total amount of production that is done in the country today. That is the reason this particular dam is so very important or so pivotal in the context of the country Ethiopia. But there is an opposition to them, opposition to the dam. What is the opposition? The other countries such as Egypt, I said, or for that matter, please look at this, South Sudan for that matter, they have opposed this dam. Reason is, their contention or their concern is, if you develop a dam, the flow of water might become weaker. Especially for Egypt, which majorly depends on this particular river water, their argument is the flow of water might become weaker for us. You will control how much water will flow down to lower riparian countries now. So that is the precise reason why the other countries have opposed this development of the project in the country Ethiopia. Everybody is okay? So this is a very important, let's say, a project in the continent of Africa. Please make a note of this. In fact, some time ago, Mr. Donald Trump, again, you never know whether he was joking or he was serious. You never know. But the statement was outrageous, by the way. He has very good relations with the leader of Egypt, right? That is Fateh al-Sisi. He basically remarked and told Sisi saying that, why don't you blow up the dam? If you're so worried about it, if you think that is a problem for you, why don't you simply blow up the dam? That was a remark that was done by the way, the president of USA. Okay, anyways, let's go forward now. Editorial, there is one editorial on the inclusion of Aadhaar in the SIR activity that is being conducted by the Election Commission of India in the state of Bihar. Now, what is the update? I know you have already read too much about SIR. I know that. What is the update? Update is simple. The Election Commission of India has issued a notice to the Bihar CEO, right? That is Bihar's Chief Electoral Officer, to include Aadhaar as the 12th document. Include Aadhaar as the 12th document. Now, my concern is what UPSC might do is, to make the question very difficult, they might ask you which of the following documents were taken as right, let's say a proof, right, for the voters. This is a list of the 11 documents. Please go through that. This is my sincere advice to you. Just to make the question very outrageous, they might ask you which of the following documents were covered as valid documents under SIR. And I've also given certain data regarding what kind of revisions are generally conducted by Election Commission of India. So what is the update here? Update is very simple. In fact, yesterday Chethan sir also has discussed this. The Supreme Court of India took up the case and basically asked Election Commission of India, why do you not accept Aadhaar as one of the documents? Right, one of the documents that is acceptable in the SIR. The Election Commission of India simply said, right, the Aadhaar is not a proof of citizenship. Aadhaar is not a proof of citizenship. And so basically the Supreme Court of India said, in that case, if you look at the 11 other documents that you're accepting as a proof, essentially only two documents. Please have a look at this. Essentially only two documents, that is the birth certificate, right, or for that matter passport. Only two documents are a proof of citizenship. So why is that Aadhaar is not a proof of citizenship, you will not accept, but other 9 documents which are not a proof of citizenship, you will accept? Right, so that was the counter question raised by the Supreme Court of India. And finally, Supreme Court of India also looked at the fact that a large chunk of population in the whole of India, not just Bihar, in the whole of India, has Aadhaar, by the way. Right? Most of the population has Aadhaar. Compared to that, let's say, when you ask passport, and when you say passport is a valid document for you to, right, basically provide this as a proof of citizenship, yes, agreed. But how much percentage of the total population has passport? In the state of Bihar, hardly 2%. So more than 90% of the population has Aadhaar. You don't want to accept it. But 2% of the population has, right, let's say passport. You will accept this as a proof. So Supreme Court of India issued a directive to Election Commission. Now Election Commission has issued a directive to the Bihar CEO to consider Aadhaar as well. And that will become the 12th document. Here only 11 are listed. The Aadhaar will become the 12th document that will be accepted. Now, multiple voters whose names have been removed, have been stricken off from the list of the voters, can approach the Election Commission representatives, submit the Aadhaar, and ensure their names will be again reintroduced or put back in the voters list. Right, so this is basically what has been discussed, right, in the context of the editorial here. Everybody is okay? Please do let me know. Next article, Nicobar Project. Nicobar Project. There is an update. The discussion regarding Nicobar Project has been happening for multiple months now. What is the update? The Great Nicobar Project, which is, right, one of the largest economic projects that has been proposed here, there are certain concerns which have been raised. The concern that is being discussed in the article is, there is a complaint to the Ministry of Environment saying that the complaint has gone to the ministry saying that it has gone through the tribal council saying that there are certain provisions under the Forest Rights Act, FRA 2006. In fact, I remember this in one of the earlier videos, not in the context of Nicobar, but in another context, we had discussed FRA. There are certain powers or provisions which are given. The rights of the citizens or rights of the tribal population have to be protected, have to be recognized as well as protected under the Forest Rights Act. Now, the complaint simply says that the administration, when the administration which is responsible for the announcement of this particular project in Nicobar, it has submitted a document to Government of India saying that all the rights have been recognized and they have been protected, and we have conducted the process according to the law. We have taken the approval from the Gram Sabhas, etc., etc. That kind of a, let's say, submission has been done by the administration to the union government. The tribal council simply says nothing of this particular sort has happened. The rights of the forest dwellers, the tribal population in this region, they have not been registered, they have not been protected. For example, the tribes which are present here, the main two tribes are, please remember the name, Nicobaris, right? The Nicobaris as well as Shompen. This can be asked in the preliminary examination. Please make a note of this. Nicobaris, right, as well as Shompen. These are the two main tribal groups which are present in the region, whose rights, who will be losing the land because of this particular project. In fact, the Shompen has been classified as right PVTGs. That is also a very important area. Please go through that. The Shompen tribal community has been classified as PVTGs. According to the census of 2011, hardly around 200 plus people are left out, right, are present within this particular tribal group now. So the concern has been raised. Now the Government of India has sent a letter asking for factual report. The Government of India is simply asking, these are the complaints, give us the status, give us the report, right? What is the factual data, right? Have you conducted the exercise? In that case, what is the data? Submit all of this data to the government. So that is basically the update associated with the Great Nicobar Project. Okay, next, the protest in Indonesia. A very big article has been provided, but is it that relevant for the UPSC examination? Some information is relevant. What has actually happened? What has actually happened in the Indonesia? Large scale protests have been taken place, right? There is right, let's say, the protest wherein the multiple public assets, government assets have been burnt by the protesters. The government is taking actions now, right? So etc, all of this is happening. But why is it happening? What is the issue here? If we can understand that, more than sufficient. In this particular country, Indonesia, very recently, the legislature there basically announced that the monthly rental allowance for the legislatures will be made $3,000. Listen to me carefully. The argument is very simple. The legislature there announced that the rental allowance for the members of the legislature will be made $3,000. And this was the, right, let's say, the immediate cause. There have been multiple protests already in the last 1 year, but this was the immediate cause. What is the concern there? As usual, here the people are worried about, right, let's say, living in poverty. The earnings are very, very less. The job opportunities which are present are very less. And when the legislatures are taking rental, right, I hope you understand, the rental allowance of $3,000 compared to the national average wage, national minimum wage, this is a 10 times. All of you are able to understand? Compared to the national minimum average wage, this is a 10 times. And this is basically the rental assistance for the legislatures. So basically this this spread like wildfire. There were protests, and as such, I've told you already there were protests. In the last 1 year, multiple protests have been conducted. For example, last year the government there reduced the budget expenditure. They cut the budget expenditure, and their argument was we need to improve the finances of the government. In order to improve the finances, we need to cut the expenditure. Yes, they cut the expenditure. But the departments where the expenditure was cut, one of them is higher education. Right? So many of the students started protesting. Their argument is if you cut allocation to the higher education, scholarships will be cut. If the scholarship is cut, I will have to pay more money from my pocket to get higher education. Right? So that actually led to protest. And just a basic idea, if the government is worried about finances, one way it can collect finances is by imposing taxes. Correct? All of you will agree? If the government wants to collect money, the best way to collect money is by imposing taxes. What the government there did was essentially impose higher property taxes. That actually again led to a lot of protest. So in the last 1 year, there have been multiple protests, one after the other. And this announcement of the government to provide $3,000 as a rental assistance actually, right, was a spark. It was basically the last straw, and the protest broke out. And during the protest, there was one person, one worker who was crushed by the police vehicle. Right? During the protest, one person was killed because the police vehicle did not stop. They basically ran over this particular person, and that became right. That was now basically a breaking point, and large-scale protests have broken out in the country Indonesia now. Done. So this is essentially the summary of what is happening in Indonesia. Please don't read everything associated with Indonesia. UPSC, I don't think so, is going to ask you to that particular extent. And finally, the last article, something interesting that has been published today. In the last couple of months, you must have come across, right, a disease, right, basically a brain-eating amoeba. Correct? All of you have come across this? PAM. That is a primary amoebic meningoencephalitis. PAM. PAM. Primary amoebic meningoencephalitis. PAM. Now, there is a very interesting fact that has been provided. Just observe and remember this. Multiple cases have been reported in Kerala. Multiple deaths have been reported in Kerala. Why this is called as a PAM or a brain eating disease? The article simply says it is referred to as a brain eating disease not because right something is happening in the brain, but because the right, let's say the amoeba here literally starts eating the brain cells. Right? I hope you understand. Literally starts eating the brain cells. And what do you mean by literally starts eating? Do not imagine like we eat or you and me eat. No, right? In case of amoeba, it will basically use various parts of the body. It will use, right, let's say enzymes, etc., to break down the cell of the brain. Right? That is exactly what has been given in the form of information here. So have a look at the data here. Right? The the small projections are called as amoebostomes. Right? Again, very technical. I hope you understand. Amoebostomes. Right? This will start eating the right, breaking down the cell. In addition to this, there are various enzymes and toxins which are released, proteases, etc., which will break down the walls, which will break down the components, the other organs of the cell. And that is essentially the reason why this amoeba is called as a brain eating amoeba. Done? Okay, so this is the update. Apart from this, how does it enter into the body, where it is present, right? What is the problem, why it is so deadly, etc. We have discussed this earlier as well. So these are the 11 articles I wanted to cover from today's daily edition of Hindu newspaper, along with the descriptive question as well as multiple MCQs. If you're liking this initiative, do not forget to hit the like button. But before I close the session, if anybody has got any kind of a doubts or confusion regarding whatever I've discussed, please do let me know now. Regarding the PPT, again, I'm reiterating this. After the session is over, download this. Right? All of you have got the link by now. Please download it. Any doubts? Any doubts or concerns regarding whatever I've discussed in today's session? Sir, is there no article on Russian vaccine for cancer? I don't think so. It was there in today's Hindu newspaper, Delhi edition. Maybe tomorrow or day after tomorrow it will come. Does China have a written? Okay. Anything else? It enters through the nose. Okay, okay, done. And again, please understand, I'm giving you just an update regarding multiple articles because the concept of PAM, we have discussed that earlier, right? We have discussed that multiple times early, right? That's the reason there's no point of repeating the same thing again and again. I'm just giving you an update. What is a string of pearl theory? String of pearl theory basically means surrounding India in the right, let's say Indian Ocean, etc. Surrounding India, China has invested a lot of money in different countries, developed infrastructure, right? Port infrastructure, etc. It has developed surrounding India, and this basically is referred to as string of pearls. What have in India rare material? My dear, in India rare material, or let's say the rare earths are present, but please understand you need to have lot of investment for that, right? You need to have lot of investment. Sir, French government also has fallen, no discussion on it. If it is required, I'll give it, don't worry. Huh. Done then. So that's it from my side. Take care. Right. Have a great day. See you tomorrow, same time. That is 10 a.m., where we will discuss the important articles from the Hindu newspaper. See you tomorrow, sharp at 10 a.m. Have a great day.